All right. Welcome back, everybody, to our latest episode of The Nest. Before we begin today's episode, we would like to address the horrific events that consistently occur in the United States of America due to gun violence. I cannot imagine the grief and sadness of all the families and friends who have lost loved ones to this violence. And I urge all of you who are able to go out and vote this November to elect officials and representatives who will actually address gun control in this country.
Yeah, it's been a tough week. I got to say, and normally this is a show that's dedicated to sports, and we'll try our best to keep doing that because that's what we do over here, and we'll keep covering the rest of New England sports, the Celtics, the Bruins, the Red Sox, Patriots, etc. Right? But it's times like these where you kind of really put everything into perspective and say that all the stuff that we do really pales in comparison to the magnitude of the tragedy that's happened. And unfortunately, it's happened way too many times. And unless we do something about it, and unless our politicians do something about it, unless we, the voters, go out and do something to make sure that our politicians actually take action on this, I'm afraid that this is going to keep happening. And I can only go on, and my heart grieves for all the people in Uvalde, not just them, but for the people in Buffalo who just not too long before that tragically lost their lives at a grocery shop in a racially motivated killing. This is all too common in America, and it shouldn't be happening. I understand that this is not our lane, and to all of you who may be seeing us, you might be thinking that, and part of that is true, but I just felt the need to speak out about this as a private citizen, as someone who has an opinion, and as an American who sees that this is happening day in and day out in our country. And no one who's seeing what's happening should be happy about this or even satisfied to do nothing about this. We got to do something to change, and until then, we're going to keep pressing on. But at the same time, I understand that at the same time, people who are coming here, they're coming here for an escape, and we're going to do that, right? Because in the midst of this tragic week, we saw the Celtics reach the finals, and Red Sox are starting to improve. And I'm going to try my best to keep going here and doing the usual thing that I'm used to doing. And I'm sure Amartya would probably second that as well. So I'll give it to him and let him take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Rohan. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously horrific just to keep seeing this over and over. So yeah, hopefully we can go out and vote in November and address this by electing individuals who will actually address gun control in this country. And yes, so we will now go back to our show. So the Boston Celtics, for the first time since 2010, are back in the NBA Finals following a thrilling Game 7 victory over the Miami Heat. The Red Sox have been playing better recently, as Rohan mentioned, and we'll also talk a little bit about the NHL Playoffs and the Champions League final between Real Madrid and Liverpool. So obviously, though, the first topic should be the Celtics. I mean, what a game!
They got to be at the top over here, because
I mean,
what a game
100 to 96 in Game 7, right?
It was a tight scoring game. I mean, usually 100 used to be like a high scoring a high score. Now it's kind of considered the bare minimum. I mean, the fact that the Celtics were able to hold the Heat to 96 is really in and of itself something, and the defense has really just been holding up the Celtics all throughout this year. And Marcus Smart doesn't have that Defensive Player of the Year name for nothing. And despite all of that, right? The Celtics, they got out to a pretty ginormous lead, right? They had at one point they had a 17-point lead, and then Miami kind of chipped away at it, and then in the fourth quarter, the Celtics went on that 8-0 run, and then it was pretty tight all the way like close to the end. I mean, all the way like until the 16-second mark, when the Celtics had a 2-point lead and Jimmy Butler had a chance to give the Heat a lead with the 3, and then obviously that didn't happen. So that was probably a lucky break for the Celtics, but overall, just a well played game. Overall, I mean, I wasn't too happy about the fact that they kind of let the Heat into it late, but I think our big guys showed up, and for example, like Jason Tatum, he got 26 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Meanwhile, for Jimmy Butler, he got 35 points for Miami. I felt that containing him was going to be important. Butler still had a good night, but I kind of had a feeling that he wasn't going to go get a lot of support around him. So given all of that, I'm impressed with the way that the Celtics have performed on the road, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in the final, because this is kind of like the dream setup that I'm waiting for so many years, like Boston, Golden State. That's a matchup that we haven't been allowed to see for so long, right? Golden State, this dynasty in the mid 2010s has been resurgent again, and now they're ready to take on the Boston Celtics, who have been the best team record-wise since the calendar turned to 2022. And this is a Warriors team that has most of their tools back. Klay Thompson's healthy, Draymond Green's healthy, Steph Curry's been lighting it up. So I'm curious to see how they're going to pair up against the likes of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford. It's going to be a great series. Amartya, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, before we go into Golden State, I'd just like to also say like one thing I didn't really like at the end, how they sort of made it very close. Like, I mean, I'm just going to say this, 3:35 left in the fourth quarter. Marcus Smart made 2 free throws. It was 98-85, 13-point lead. And then the Heat go on an 11-2 run in the final 3:35. And the last field goal by the Celtics was actually at 4:28 when Jason Tatum made a 2-point shot to make it 95-85. And then ensuing possessions, it was just Marcus Smart taking some ill-advised shots. Jaylen Brown had an offensive foul. And yeah, I mean, I was really nervous when Jimmy Butler pulled up and shot that 3. I know it's a low percentage shot for him, but just knowing the moment for him, like I can understand why he shot that. I'm glad it didn't go in.
Especially the fact that he had a ginormous game 6, right? Like Jimmy Butler was like easily.
I wasn't really happy about like kind of how the Celtics sort of ended this game. It's just sort of been a pattern where they sort of weren't able to sort of like continue to sort of dominating. Like really, like I mean, they should have won this game probably like by 15.
They won in a
17.
close game. They did win in a close game, and Celtics have historically not done so well in close games.
Yeah, no, but I agree. But like
for a game where they for a kind of losing performance where they usually give up the lead late, this is one where they kind of gave up the lead, but they didn't collapse just enough to actually lose. But if they did actually end up losing, this would have been considered an epic collapse.
Yeah, I mean, considering how they won game 4 and 5 pretty convincingly, and then game 6, like I mean, they had it sort of in like a good situation. Jaylen Brown misses those 2 free throws, and then they lose that game. Obviously, Butler was spectacular that day, 47 points. And even today, yesterday, he had 35 points. And Bam Adebayo had a strong game as well. But I think ultimately it was just sort of the Celtics were able to just do just enough to get by. I mean, Jason Tatum was very good. But it was just still a lot of mistakes they made kind of uncharacteristically, like Jaylen Brown having an offensive foul. I mean, the last 4 or 5 shots they took were not good shots. And I mean, they sort of allowed Miami back in the game slowly. So that's what I didn't like. But that said, like we've been continuing to say this throughout the playoffs, the Celtics, like at some point they need to have better late game execution. But, I mean, they were able to sweep Brooklyn. They still beat Milwaukee, the defending champions from last year, in 7 games. And now they beat Miami, the number 1 seed. 3 times in Miami, they went in and won. That is very difficult to do. That team is very good. So the Celtics have shown that they can kind of get away with kind of this lackluster play in the fourth quarter and still come away with winning the series. And Golden State is going to be a problem for sure. But that said, I kind of like the road that the Celtics have sort of taken, right? Like they've taken a very difficult road to this finals. Like, I mean, because Brooklyn, this wasn't not your typical 7 seed. This was a team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And I've said this many times before, the team that has beaten Kevin Durant in the playoffs, all seasons but one, has made it to the NBA Finals. All seasons but one. And now that trend continues into 2022 as the Celtics are now in the finals. So when you beat Kevin Durant, you are a legitimate championship contender. That's how good Kevin Durant is, as is Kyrie Irving. And then next round, you face Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks, who won the championship last year. You go down 3-2 in Milwaukee, where you have to win a game 6. Tatum was spectacular that day, 46 points. Then you win game 7 in Boston. And then against Miami, you're down 1-0. You follow that up with a 25-point win in game 2 in Miami. And then you're down 2-1. You follow that up with a 20-point win in game 4 in Boston. And then you go into Miami in game 5 and win that game. And then you win game 7 in Miami. I mean, really, it's a really impressive run. Compare that to the Warriors, where they beat Denver in 5. And the Nuggets do have Nikola Jokic, who won back-to-back MVPs, but really the rest of his team is not that good, especially without Jamal Murray. So obviously, I think the Nuggets were really kind of shorthanded, even with Jokic. And I know that you can say the Bucks were shorthanded without Middleton, and that is a fair argument to make. But I also think the Celtics have played better teams.
Still at Giannis though, so that's
yeah.
They'll take on Giannis, so that's a big deal.
And I mean, the first round, I mean, they had to face Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, who are both healthy. So I mean, that on its own is very difficult matchup.
I mean, compare that to the Warriors. Compare that to the Warriors' path, where they had to get past the Grizzlies, and John Morant got injured late.
Exactly, so. Yeah, and against Dallas, like Luka Doncic is really kind of the best player on that Dallas team, and at this point in his career, he's not good enough to just sort of dominate a series and like win like all the time. Like, I mean, I know he did it against Phoenix. Phoenix kind of did also collapse, so I don't know how much of that really ended up being just sort of the Suns kind of imploding versus really the Mavericks playing well. I think it was a matter of both, but I think the Warriors, this is going to be the toughest test for Golden State. And I think that's what's going to really be interesting to me. Like, obviously, like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, like that's a terrific lineup. So that's going to be something that's really intriguing to me.
Yeah,
like,
Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, they're really going to be like the sleeper picks because they've been really like backing up the big three that the Warriors have had, like the Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. But given all that though, I mean, this is like a real class. This has all of the signs of being like of what's going to end up being a true classic. Right? Heavyweight against heavyweight. Jason Tatum versus Steph Curry. Jaylen Brown versus Klay Thompson. I think those are going to be like the key matchups, right? And so many.
Al Horford and Draymond Green, right?
That's another one, right? And what I want to watch for is what are going to be the potential one-on-one battles, right? Because who's going to be guarding Jason Tatum? Is it going to be Draymond Green, or is it going to be Wiggins, right?
It could be Klay Thompson as well. It really depends on sort of the matchup.
It could be him, right? And then what's Marcus Smart's role going to be here, right? So is he going to be primarily in a defensive role, as he has primarily been?
I mean, I could see him going up against Steph Curry.
As well.
I mean, the defensive player of the year must go up against the best player on the Warriors offense.
So that's got to be a factor. And this is honestly the matchup I've dreamed of seeing, right? Because I respect the Warriors so much, and Steph Curry is he's got to be one of my favorite players, even though he's on the opposition, right? Like I still really love Steph Curry, and I've always appreciated him as a player and respected him and his skill level, his work ethic, and all of that, right? Especially in those matchups he had against LeBron James in the mid 2010 in the mid 2010s. The Warriors were just able to grind out victories. Of course, in 2016, the Cavs did win it, but I'm talking 15, 17, and 18. Those teams were pretty dominant, and a lot of that team is still there, right? I mean, the notable exception is KD is gone, right? But they do have Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, right? And they have a healthy Klay Thompson. So, and that's something that they didn't have in the last couple of years when they weren't in the finals, right? And this is, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? And quite frankly, this is a team that's been to the finals 6 times in the last 8 years, right? And last time they made it to the finals, 2019, the Warriors, I mean, they ended up losing to Toronto, but I mean, even that was a well-thought series.
Also, Kevin Durant got injured, and then Klay Thompson actually tore his ACL in Game 6 of that series. So, I mean, that's when sort of the injuries really hit them.
So it is going to be a tough task for the Celtics, and not having home court, it's going to be definitely a much tougher task. Although I'm not really quite sure how tough of a task that is.
Yeah, I mean, they've won Celtics, 7 games on the road.
They've been able to win a lot on the road, but the Warriors have a fortress. So that can't be discounted. There's a lot to love on both sides. For the Warriors, I like. There's a lot to love in the sense that their core is still there, their core is still intact, and their top performers are still performing. They still got Steve Kerr, who's been a magnificent coach, right? He's had a great track record, and he's also a guy I have a lot of respect for. Given his coaching record and just the way he approaches the game. Ime Udoka on the other side, the Celtics, also a great coach, and he's really brought this team up from something that looked like it was in shambles in the calendar year 2021, and then the Celtics were able to pretty much flip the script. So much that they're able to get past tough teams, not just Brooklyn, but Milwaukee, and then after Milwaukee, it was Miami, right? So yes, it's not going to be easy, but I don't think that the Warriors are unbeatable. They're not 10 feet tall. Yes, they're a great team, but they also seem beatable.
Yeah, I mean, there were stretches where I think like they really could have been more challenged. Like against Memphis, really. Like, I mean, if John Morant doesn't get injured, maybe they still beat the Grizzlies, and they probably would have. I would have. I think they would have. I mean, it would have been a lot
gone
closer.
To 7 games. It would have ended in 6. It would have gone to 7.
And also, like, I think like there are some areas where, like the Dallas Mavericks, for example, they don't have an interior rim protector like Robert Williams III for the Celtics. So that's a major advantage. The Celtics have 2 of the best defensive players in the series in Williams and Marcus Smart.
That's the thing I didn't mention.
That's going to be very interesting
for the Celtics is the bench, right? So we have so many weapons on our
Grant
bench.
Williams,
right?
Peyton
Grant Williams,
Pritchard.
Daniel Tice potentially. I don't know.
Peyton Pritchard, he's been pretty good too. So I think the Celtics have a good team. Like I think they match up very well with Golden State, and I'm not worried about experience.
To be fair, they got Jordan Poole, they got Andrew Wiggins on their bench as well.
They do. They have a very good team, but I also think the Celtics match up very well with Golden State overall. Like I think I'm not too worried about experience because, to be honest, I mean Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, and Jimmy Butler, all 4 of those players played in the NBA Finals at some point. So the Celtics have played and beaten very experienced teams at this point. So I'm not real worried about the experience being an issue for this team. The fatigue might be a little bit concerning, but they do have 3 days of rest, and I really don't think it's going to be as big of an issue.
And of course they're traveling west, so they have that advantage as well, right? They're traveling from Miami to San Francisco, so they're going to be gaining 3 hours. The Warriors don't really have that advantage.
No, both teams are going to have to do cross-country travel, right? I mean, the Warriors are going to have to come to Boston too.
Both are going to have to do that. But for those first couple of games in San Francisco, I'd be watching to see if that's a factor.
Because usually game 1, but game 1 to game 2 is 3 days of rest. So really, like the whole like being tired,
so I see that, right? Jet lag becomes much less of a factor when you have more days of rest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about that. That's not going to be an excuse. Like if the Celtics, I mean, whoever loses the series, like it's not going to be because they were tired and not any of that stuff.
But in such a close series, and I think it is going to be a really, really close series, all you need is the slightest thing to really tip it in one direction or the other.
I think what's really going to kind of interest me now is like how do the Celtics sort of handle the late game situation? Because at this point, they've kind of gotten away with it kind of being very shaky, right? Like they got away in game 7, literally in Miami, having very shaky late game closing. Like they didn't really close that game out properly. They just sort of got very fortunate that Jimmy Butler missed that shot and everything like that. But I think against Golden State, like, I mean, that's going to really be tested, right? Because if you make a mistake and you have Steph Curry now on the transition 3 trying to hit that shot, how does that go? So I think the Celtics are going to have to be very careful about this. They're going to have to be very careful about turning the ball over. In game 3 against Miami, I remember they had a big issue with that, 24 turnovers, I believe. And yesterday, I mean, they were better with the ball overall, but I mean, they have to be very careful about the offensive fouls that are being called, like on Tatum. Jaylen Brown had one called on him too. So those are going.
And one was even a result of an overturned call. It was a challenge by Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah, exactly. So those are going to be things I'm kind of like going to be a little bit careful about, but I do think the Celtics do match up well with them. So that's sort of like one thing that's going to interest me. I think Robert Williams is going to have a major role, as is Marcus Smart. And I think like the key is going to be like, how do you sort of like respond like when like Tatum is resting? Like, can you continue to have enough scoring to match up with Golden State? Because against Golden State, you're going to need to score a lot. Miami's a very defensive heavy team.
You are going to have to do that. But I have faith in the Celtics defense to kind of, if not totally put a damper on the Warriors offense, but at least like contain it enough to give the Celtics offense a chance to kind of come back into it. But if you really put all that into perspective, though, Golden State is still Golden State at the end of the day. But if I had to give, like, if any team had any kind of chance at defeating them, I would definitely give the Celtics the best chance at defeating them. But it's still Golden State at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, the season series was a split. I mean, in December 17th, 2021 in Boston, the Warriors won 111 to 107. Then March 16th in San Francisco, the Celtics won 110 to 88.
So, okay. So I guess home court doesn't matter.
That game actually was the one where Marcus Smart actually, he kind of unintentionally injured Steph Curry, and Steph Curry actually missed the rest of the day of that game, and they ended up winning by 22. Klay Thompson did play that day, as did Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole. So the Warriors still had enough talent, but the Celtics definitely can match up well with Golden State. I think it's going to be a great series. So, I mean, I think it'll come down to, and I'm not too worried about being on the road. I mean, at this point, the Celtics, I mean, they won Game 7 in Miami at this point, and I think they can win really wherever they need to play. So I'm not too worried about that. I mean, they won 3 road games in Miami, the 1 seed. So, like, I mean, that just shows you, like, wherever they need to win, they've been able to do it, right? It doesn't matter if it's at TD Garden or Milwaukee or Brooklyn or
in some
Miami.
In some sense, the Celtics have kind of been not so great at playing at the Garden.
Yeah, I mean,
they won for some weird reason.
Well, they swept Brooklyn, right? So they won 2 against Brooklyn, but against Milwaukee, yeah, they were a little shaky, right? I mean, 2 games, they won 2 games, they lost 2 games at the Garden. Against Miami, they only won once, Game 4. So that's going to be interesting to sort of see how that sort of goes. Like, but I think the Celtics do, like, I like the poise they have. Like, I think Tatum is ready for the moment. I think Jaylen Brown's been terrific, and I'm excited about this. I think if Rob Williams, hopefully he uses these 3 days to get healthy, healthier than like his current state, and if he can like continue to with the shot blocking he has, that's a major advantage for the Celtics. So that's going to be something I'm very kind of interested in seeing how much of an impact him and Marcus Smart are able to bring. Both of them are kind of very kind of hampered by injuries right now. So like whatever, like, I mean, 3 days is a lot of time for them to get healthy, and that's going to be very big. So I like the Celtics' chances in the series. I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult, but I think they can definitely win the championship. So I guess naturally now we have to go, since we're talking about winning or losing the championship, we have to go with our predictions. So Rohan, go first. Prediction for the series.
I gotta say, right, the Celtics do match up very well against the Warriors. The Celtics have a good amount of depth, good amount of youth, right? The Warriors, they have experience on their side, but that's as we mentioned before, that's not really as much of an advantage as we really think it is. Warriors, they're also at home, which normally would be an advantage, but it may not be as much of an advantage as we think it is. Celtics are defensively the better team. Offensively, I think the Golden State Warriors are still probably better. But the one thing I would be really, really cautious about is late in games, because Celtics have kind of a notorious tendency for blowing leads, and they got very close to doing it in Game 7. And this for the Warriors, it's the exact opposite, right? Because if you look at their whole record in the playoffs, their point differential in the first 3 quarters of a game is -7, but in the fourth quarter it's +94. So if those numbers are to be believed, and if history is to repeat itself, then you better be pretty much demolishing them by the third quarter if you want any hopes that they're not gonna just destroy you in the fourth quarter. This is really a tough one. It's really, really a tough one. I want to give this to the Celtics, but at the same time, I think it's going to be really, really close, and Golden State might actually end up being the better team as it plays out. I'm going to go with the Warriors in 7.
Okay. Yeah. I think Golden State is a terrific team, obviously. So I do agree with that. Like, and I agree. I think the late game execution is going to sort of be really sort of what determines the series. But that said, I kind of like just sort of the way the Celtics have just sort of played all season. Like, I think they find a way to make it work at the end of the day. Like, even if we say like the late game management is poor, they were able to still get to the finals with this current situation, and they've beaten good teams to get there. So I'm not really like, I feel like they'll find a way. Like, they sort of really kind of it's almost like sometimes
Yeah,
they get kind of complacent.
Yeah, like the Celtics are not going to get steamrolled. Like I can at least tell you that much. They're not going
I
to get
don't think they're
steamrolled.
going to be complacent. I think it's almost like sometimes they feel complacent, like they sort
because
of get
this
up
because
big.
this is a battle tested team.
Yeah, so I think for that reason, like I like their advantage. Like I do kind of wish that Game 7 was in Boston, but that's not the case. But I will say, like I think, I mean,
Do you
naturally,
really wish that, given how home teams have performed? Do you really wish that?
well, naturally though, I will say this though. I think, I mean, I think the previous two series won 7 games, and I feel like it's going to be hard for me to not see this going 7 games. So let's say Celtics in 7 over the Warriors. So I guess both of us have it going 7 games. I just have the Celtics winning the series. I think Jason Tatum, this is his moment to really kind of, like, officially kind of have his arrival at the NBA moment. And when I say that, I mean like kind of like now everyone will know who he is after sort of this series. Like everyone now is beginning to know because the Celtics are now in the finals. But once you win a championship, that's like a legendary kind of like stamp of approval on your resume. So I think this is going to be his legendary moment. Kind of, I mean, the Celtics have already kind of beaten some great teams.
This would be like a big resume booster for Ime Udoka, right? Or even for the Celtics overall, right?
Because the whole team, right? So
yeah, because this would be like the first championship since that Doc Rivers Big Three era, like Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. Because after that era, it really looked like the Celtics kind of disintegrated. Yeah, they made it to a bunch of conference finals after that. They were never really quite able to get over that hump, and then Brad Stevens, he ended up leaving, going up and bringing Ime Udoka in. So by that measure, Ime Udoka has done a better job, right? Because he's gotten us to the finals.
Yeah, first year.
But it's gonna be a tough
at the same
task,
time, I mean, I think Golden State is like a terrific team, but I think at the same time, though, like there have been games and stretches where I kind of look at some of the teams they've beaten versus the teams the Celtics have beaten, and it's not that the Celtics have gotten away. Like they've also gotten away with playing teams that were injured. Like Miami and Milwaukee, both you could say had severe injuries that really kind of hurt them. But at the same time, I just feel like the quality of competition the Celtics got in their 7 games against Milwaukee, Miami, and the 4 games against Brooklyn, those are better teams than the teams the Warriors had to play. So I think the road to the finals was a lot more difficult for Boston than it was for Golden State. And I think that's going to really be what really helps this team. Because at the end of the day, right, like even if we talk about like the situations, right, like the Celtics going down to Milwaukee 3-2 and winning that Game 6, that is huge. Milwaukee last year won the championship in Game 6 in Milwaukee.
But there's been a lot of surprise because I expected Brooklyn to be much more of a challenge. I didn't expect a sweep there. Milwaukee kind of lived up to the billing, right? Miami, I didn't expect that to be as much of a challenge. I'm surprised that it went 7 games and that it was kind of a struggle.
I think Jimmy Butler, like I think finally, like I will also say this, I think Jimmy Butler, he officially really kind of like, I think now like I can really say it, like he is a superstar. I mean, he was terrific.
He's up there, right? He's reached superstar status. I mean,
I've always kind of been a little skeptical, especially like in 2020, because that was the bubble. There were no fans in the crowd at the time. It was all like virtual Zoom and everything like that. Like the people who were like watching those games,
like virtual crowd noise.
Yeah, I mean, it's virtual crowd noise, all that stuff, right? But like this was like legitimate, right? Like 2 years later, they were the 1 seed. They forced Game 7 against Boston while Jimmy Butler's battling a knee issue. Kyle Lowry's kind of banged up. The whole team was kind of injured. Like Tyler Hero, he barely played at the end because he was like really hurt. So a lot of their core players were injured, but Jimmy Butler was terrific in Game 6 and 7. So yeah, I mean, I will say like, I mean, he definitely gained a lot of respect from the series from everyone. So I think he did a terrific job. So, but I will say, I think the Celtics do, like, I sort of like the way they're playing and they've just like overcome so much. So I think they have what it takes to beat Golden State at the end of the day. Like, I don't think the experience is really going to be an issue for them. Because at the end of the day, like, I mean, I know no player on this roster has any NBA Finals experience, but at the same time, I don't think it's really going to matter that much. I think they've accomplished enough and they have enough confidence that they can get the job done.
But now they have experience going up against top tier teams.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, just for reference, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook in 2016 took the 73-win Golden State Warriors to 7 games. That was considered one of the best teams in NBA history. And I know it's a different situation.
I mean, that only happened because they blew a 3-1 lead.
Exactly. They were up 3-1 on the 73-9 Warriors. I know it's not like apples to oranges. It's a different situation. But Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, I mean, the Celtics swept that team. I don't think that should ever be taken lightly at all. The Celtics swept a team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, who were both healthy and ready to go.
The Nets were heavy favorites, if we all remember.
I don't think they were heavy favorites, but they were like probably favored to win the series. So I mean, at this point, like
they were favored.
Overcome...
I mean, even in this series, right? Even in this series, right? If you look at the current money line, right? This is according to DraftKings as the last time I checked, right? The Warriors are a -150 to a +130 for the Celtics. And if you translate that to win probabilities, that translates to a 60% win probability for Golden State and a 44% win probability for the Celtics, which sounds kind of weird because they should both add it to 100%. They don't.
Well, it's not always like that, right? Like, it's not always like a direct. You should take that directly.
That the spread is probably what the casino takes, but if you're looking for what the betting markets are kind of pricing in and what they're kind of seeing, who they think is going to be favored, it looks like they're giving the slight edge. Not a heavy edge, but a slight edge.
Look, like
the Warriors.
When you're talking about favorites, of course, Golden State's going to be favored, right? I mean, they have experience, so they've done this before. So of course, we're going to be favored.
I mean, I'm not surprised that they're favored, but
team.
I mean, I'm not surprised that they're favored, but is it really so obvious that you're going to say like, oh, of course they're going to be favorites, right? Like,
because no, but if you're talking about like which team would you expect, the experienced team that's been there 6 times versus the team that's just been there for the first time, right? Think about it like that, right? Regardless of which team it is, which team will you pick, right? The team that's been there 6, 7 times, or the team that's just gone there for the first time, right?
Well, everyone's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, but which team do you say is the favorite, right? Do you ever pick the rookie team first, or the team that's been there 6 times?
Like normally, I'd say Golden State, but this Celtics team has proven that they can really take good teams all the way.
Exactly, yeah. But you're talking about who's favored, right? The favorites are.
And to be fair, I'm also still calling the Warriors, but like I'm doing it in 7, but I'm still calling the Warriors on this because I think they're the better team overall on paper, despite the Cinderella story that the Celtics have really had. But I don't think it's kind of like an overwhelming, oh yeah, totally, yeah, of course the Warriors are going to win. It's not like
I didn't say win. I'm saying they're going to be favored. Favored could also be like 55-45, right? Or 51-49. You're favored. That really doesn't mean anything.
Something like that. But they're not overwhelming favorites.
Also say this about the Warriors, right? Because I mean, this is going to be this should be a narrative that's probably discussed now. The Warriors without Kevin Durant in the finals are 1-2. So they've won 3 times. 2 of those times were with Kevin Durant. And the other time was in 2015 when it was just against LeBron James and the Cavaliers. But if you remember that series, Kyrie Irving got injured after game 1. And then they also didn't have Kevin Love for the rest of that playoffs. So they were really just facing off against LeBron James in that finals. And they won that game they won that series in 6. The next year, they were 73-9 and they lost. And then they got Kevin Durant. They win 2 more, and then Kevin Durant got injured in 2019. He did play in Game 5 in 2019, but he injured his Achilles. We all remember that the Warriors won that game, but they lost the next game. The Warriors are 1-2 so far in the finals without Kevin Durant. That should be something that's probably should be discussed more now, because now it's another situation. They're there without Kevin Durant. So it's going to kind of be one of those interesting situations to kind of look at as well. And that might be something to kind of like, I mean, I'm kind of curious to see how this sort of goes. I think the Warriors are a great team, but that is going to be a narrative as well to kind of watch for and see like how it's happening. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great series. I think both of us have the series going 7 games, and I have Celtics winning in 7. You have the Warriors winning in 7. So I think it will be a classic. At least I hope so.
We both agreed that this is going to be a close series.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 6 games. I mean, I think it would be nice if the Celtics can win Game 6. I want to say Celtics in 6, but kind of just seeing how Milwaukee and Miami series went, I think it's just more likely to go 7 games. But we'll see. I don't know if the Celtics kind of come out. I think Game 1 is going to be very important. If they can kind of steal Game 1, then that's huge, because now like you already basically have home court for the rest of the series, at least for now. So I like your chances. If you can steal one of the first 2 in San Francisco, I really like your chances in the series. So I think this is a very winnable series. Like if they lose, like really there shouldn't be no excuses. Like, I mean, there really is nothing holding you back from winning the series. I really truly believe that. Like the championship is there for you. Like Golden State might be slightly more favored than Boston, but really like the championship is there for the Celtics to take. It is there. So I think they can totally win the series.
Next up, Larry O'Brien Trophy. That's got to be it. And yeah, shout out to Jason Tatum for winning the inaugural Larry Bird Trophy for the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. I just
Yeah,
thought
I'm
so.
looking forward to how him, Jalen, and the rest of the team do. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, no, that's our Celtics coverage. Obviously, very exciting times for Boston again with the Celtics back in the NBA Finals, going for banner number 18. So we'll see how that goes. And okay, so now let's just quickly talk about some of the other stuff going on. So Red Sox, they have been playing a lot better now. So I mean, quick thoughts on the Red Sox. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean,
They back?
it's been kind of an interesting week, right? They've been kind of resurging. Uh, they've kind of been on an upswing. Now they're currently sitting at 23 and 25. They're no longer in the cellar of the AL East. So a lot of that has to do with the fact that that they had two like good games against the Orioles. Although the two games that they lost, one of them was not so bad, but the one they lost last Friday, that was pretty bad. But at this point, being 2 games under 500, that's bad. I'm not going to deny it, but considering where they were before, I think it's not so bad, and there's potentially some hope, but it's going to take a long climb because they're 3.5 games out of a wild card spot, which under the old format, when there weren't as many playoff teams, they would be far more out of it, but they still got to chase the Angels. They still got to chase the White Sox. And I think what's really killing them at this point is that they're not doing that great against AL East opponents, right? They haven't won a single series against any AL East opponent. Now that could change tonight if the Red Sox beat the Orioles, because then they'll win that series 3 games to 2. But against the Yankees, against the Rays, I mean, you name it, right? Blue Jays haven't been
Yeah,
able to take
no,
a
I think
series.
I think it'll be interesting, right? Like 3.5 games behind, and they
But
are
uh,
10
but
games behind the
but
Yankees in
but
division.
credit to Nick Pivetta. He had a great game yesterday. I got to give it to Nick Pivetta. Even though he
Yeah,
had
that
been
was a great
struggling.
win, right? 12 to
Yeah,
2. So
yeah. Like he had a good game yesterday. Um, of course they split the doubleheader the day before that. Of course that bad loss on Friday, but
I mean, that was
um,
horrific. That was like 8 to 2. And
something
then they
something
allowed
something like
10
that.
runs.
Something really
A
really awful like
horrible
that.
loss. Like that was a terrible performance by the bullpen.
Honestly, if like I've been saying this repeatedly, I'll say it again. Like the Red Sox bullpen needs to be revamped, right? This is not a team that's going to be able to contend for a championship if they don't do something about the bullpen, right? Um, and it's not just one guy, right? Um, Matt Barnes, he's been okay, right? Like Salamora has been like on and off. And like no one has really been able to like hold the fort and give Red Sox Nation confidence that a lead going into the 7th inning or 8th inning or a 2-run lead or even a 3-run lead going into the 9th inning is safe. Those kinds of things, like you should be able to put those things away. Unfortunately, that's not the situation, and um, that's on the bullpen because yeah, you can point to the lineup, or you could point to the batting, you could point to the starting pitching, right? But it's kind of been that painful situation where one day the batting does its job, pitching doesn't, or vice versa, right? But to be fair, in recent days, the batting has improved, right? Trevor Story's really turned it up, right? In addition to the core of that, or the J.D. Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, Rafi Devers, they've been performing, and no complaints on that side. But I mean the fact that Trevor Story stepped it up, other people in the lineup as well, like Verdugo's been stepping up, like Christian Vasquez has been able to put up some timely hits as well. So yes, the batting performance is improving, right? Is it where I'd like it to be? Maybe not ideal, but I think it's good enough to really make you a contender. Starting pitching, that could use some improvement, but is it bad enough to be crippling? I don't think so. But the real Achilles heel, that's got to be the bullpen. It's really got to be the bullpen, and that's where the Red Sox, if they want to compete this year, they really got to search the market for relievers. Whether they got to give up, I don't know, draft picks or whatever it may be, or cash, or whatever the deal may involve, right? If they want to remain competitive this year, they got to do that. And I do still think it's not too late for them to put up a competitive challenge, right? Even though they're fourth place in the AL East. And given how much they achieved last year, I think this team has the fundamentals to really do it. They're just grossly underachieving right now. Yeah, maybe last year's team overachieved, but I think this year's team is vastly underachieving. But there's a lot of room for improvement, and I would say that it's got to happen sooner rather than later. Otherwise, I think that this is just going to be another dud of a year.
Yeah, definitely. I think like I am happy with how they've been playing recently, but like I haven't been too happy with the Orioles series, like the Friday loss and even losing one of the doubleheader games. They are currently losing 2-0 to the Orioles in the second inning. So I mean the game has just started, but I don't really like how it's sort of been. So I mean, yeah, I mean I'm still a little bit kind of skeptical on how this team can do going forward. Seems like sort of like every time they sort of, I mean, they are in a better situation now, but the AL East is very competitive now. So, I mean, they need to capitalize on these opportunities.
Yeah, I'm not going to be convinced until they put up repeated dominant performances against the Rays and the Yankees. Until that happens, I don't think that this team really has a lot going for it. Yeah, they might entertain us. They might tease us. They might say, okay, we might be a good team, but unless you can take down the heavyweights, I don't think this team really has anything going for it.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyways, yeah, that will be our brief Red Sox coverage. And then very quickly, we're just going to talk about a little bit about the Champions League final and the NHL. Rohan, I'll just let you start with the Champions League final
sure.
a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been kind of like a long like couple of weeks, right? Because in addition to Boston sports, there's been a lot going on and like not just the NHL playoffs, even though the Bruins are not really in it, right? But obviously with soccer, right? I mean, you had the major the European leagues ending not this week, but the week before that, and of course the EPL that finished up, and Liverpool, they had a real chance to wrap up the title, right? They went into the final day trailing Man City by 1 point, and so basically they need to get a better result than Man City. Either a Liverpool win, Man City draw, or Man City loss, Liverpool win, or Man City
Manchester
loss.
City down 2-0, right?
Yeah, and so like yeah, like Liverpool eventually they were down initially, and then they came back. So Liverpool, I mean, they were able to do their job, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, 92 points and still not able to win the title. I mean, there's really nothing you can do about the fact that City, who basically had to lose in order to drop the title, they went down 2-0 into the 75th minute, and then they score 1, 2, 3. And the perpetual dagger in Liverpool's side has been Gundogan, and he did it again. Yes, Man City's like Liverpool they had a great roster this time. Mo Salah sharing that golden boot. Actually, did he win the golden boot? But I think he was like up there for the golden boot. I think check my facts on this, but I think he did share the golden boot. But I want you to check that for me. But it's been like Jurgen Klopp he's been a fantastic manager. But Pep Guardiola, the team he's been able to put up at City has just been so phenomenal, and that team is just so stacked. 92 points, still not winning the title.
He tied with 23 goals with Son Heung-min from Tottenham.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you for that. So yeah, with that though, I mean, even though losing the title while still getting 92 points sounds absurd, actually in the 2018-2019 season, Liverpool got 97 points and still lost the title to, guess who? It was City, who got 98 points that year. And
yeah, I will say this though, right? Like, I mean, Liverpool, like, I mean, it was a tough week, right? Because then we have to talk about the final as well.
And it's not just the game. Yeah,
Real
it's not
Madrid.
like they just
totally
outshot. They just totally outshot Real Madrid. Something like, was it like 24 shots or something like 24 shots to 4 for Real Madrid. I mean, Real Madrid, they did have their chances, to be fair, right? I mean, there was that disallowed goal late in the first period, which was just barely ruled offside.
Then Vinicius Jr. with the goal, right?
In that second half, and that assist was key, right? Because Allison, he was just totally caught off guard, right? And there's really nothing he could do about it at the time. But the Liverpool offense really should have been able to do something about it, especially there's that late opportunity that Salah had. He was one-on-one against Thibaut Courtois, and Thibaut Courtois, credit to him, he was just phenomenal, right, for Real Madrid. He had so many great saves, right? Liverpool were the better team, but they lost just because Thibaut Courtois almost single-handedly just bailed out Real Madrid. And what is it, like the 14th time or something like that they're able to lift that UEFA Champions League trophy? But as tough as that loss was, I can't help but also acknowledge how tough the lead up to the game was, because the game ended up being delayed by more than half an hour, and there were conflicting explanations on it. Initially, UEFA didn't really say why it was being delayed, and then they said that Liverpool fans were arriving late because at that point the Real Madrid fans were already in the stadium. And then later on, there were reports that emerged that French police were pepper spraying Liverpool supporters. And now there's been reports saying that a lot of people had fake tickets. Now, I'm not quite sure who should be believed in this case, but testimony from at least what Liverpool fans are saying is that their tickets were real and that they were met with excessive force by the guards over there and by French police. So if that's anything to be believed, then that's got to be absolutely horrific, considering the fact that UEFA, if that's true, then that means that UEFA essentially tried to do a cover up for French police for essentially tear gassing fans who potentially had legitimate tickets. The Interior Minister of France, he even basically blamed the Liverpool fans and saying that it's an issue with English football. I guess it's kind of convenient for a French politician to say that, but for all those Liverpool fans who lived through the 80s and had to live through Hillsborough, had to live through that stampede, and not only living through that stampede, but having the papers write that the Liverpool fans were responsible for the massacre when several people died that day, when in fact there was poor crowd control and it was an utter security failure by people who were responsible for guarding the stadium. That was a real blow to the Liverpool fan base, and a lot of that still hold that scar to this day. And I don't blame the Liverpool fans for feeling the same way now that they did then. Of course, we don't know all the facts, and the investigation is still ongoing. We're going to know a lot more about it afterwards, but right now, though, it doesn't look good. It really, really doesn't look good. But when it comes to the game aspect, though, when Jurgen Klopp was asked about the game, he said, "Next year you'll see us again." So I think he mentioned something along the lines of, "Where's the final next year? Is it Istanbul? Okay, book the ticket." So he said something along those lines. And obviously,
yeah, I mean, Liverpool should still be a very good team next year, right? So
they should be a really, really good team. City, they're going to be perpetually great. I mean, if that core of Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne, if that core of the team is still there, then they should be pretty competitive. Fernandinho's leaving Man City though, so I mean he's older, and I think he's retiring, or he's not retiring, but I mean he's not going to be on the City squad anymore. Is that going to potentially open up opportunities for other top clubs like Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal? Maybe Chelsea, because Chelsea they it's a pretty good team, although they're kind of under a revamp right now because the team got sold. Roman Abramovich no longer in control of the team because of sanctions against Russian oligarchs, and that whole saga over there. But given all of that, I think it's been a great season though. I think it's been a great season for Liverpool. Just unlucky though. I don't really have a lot of regrets though. It is what it is, and it's kind of frustrating that I had to see this year what we all saw in 2018, right? Of course, that was a much wider loss, right? Against Real Madrid. It was 3-1. Of course, that was Allison had a gaffe in that one. But this team does keep improving, and the sting of it isn't really as intense because they won the Champions League the following year, 2019, against Tottenham, and then in 2020 they won the Premier League. So I think the future looks bright for Liverpool and for English football overall. It's just gonna take some work to crawl back. But congrats to Real Madrid, and they're able to do this without Cristiano Ronaldo, who hasn't been on the team for some time right now. But they still have that scoring pair of Modric and Benzema, and I know in 2018 Gareth Bale was a huge part of that team as well. Of course, like things do change, but got to give it to Real Madrid and Carlo Ancelotti, who's been able to do everything that he's been able to do over there. I wish it weren't the case, but it is what it is though.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Okay, and just very, very quickly, Rohan, I just want to hear your thoughts on the Western Conference Finals between the Colorado Avalanche and the Edmonton Oilers, and also the Game 7 between the Rangers and Hurricanes. Very quickly.
Sure, yeah. So that game.
Couple minutes.
That Game 7 tonight, right? That between the Rangers and the Hurricanes, right? That's kind of interesting, right? Because like in that first series when the Hurricanes were playing against the Bruins, right? The home team won every game that series, right? And so far in this series, the home team has won every game. So Carolina has not been able to win on the road, but they've won every single time at home. The Rangers had a pretty dominant Game 6 performance. Whether that translates into Game 7, I'm not quite sure. I'd probably have to give the slight edge to Carolina though, just because of the way that they've been performing. The Rangers have been playing well though, especially behind the performance of their goalie, who's just been phenomenal. Igor Shesterkin, yeah, he's just been like phenomenal this series. But I do got to give it to Carolina. I think they hold the edge on this. And if that does play out, then that means they're playing Tampa, right? And I am kind of surprised that Tampa, Tampa during the season, the Bruins kind of had Tampa's number, even though the Bruins are not in the playoffs anymore. Tampa, they made it this far, and despite all that, they were pretty much able to take care of business against the Panthers, the President's Trophy winners, and not just like barely beating them, but pretty much like whacking them. And they're now in the Eastern Conference Finals, waiting for the winner of that Game 7. I know, Mark, that you in the past you've said that there's kind of signs of fatigue on Tampa's end, but if the playoffs are any proof of anything, they've really defied that, right? They pretty much they had to take down Toronto, and then after that they're able to get to the conference finals, and I think the Eastern Conference is pretty much set. I think the Western Conference is where the battle is really going to be fought, because I think the Western Conference is stronger this year, especially if you're looking at Colorado, right? Because you have the Oilers coming in, wouldn't that battle of Alberta, right, against the Calgary Flames, which was a decent series, right? But Colorado, they won in a Game 6 off of a last second goal against the Blues. It must have been a heartbreaker for St. Louis fans out there, but St. Louis they did play a good series, but especially when you have like Nazem Kadri on your team, like that's a pretty potent offense to have to deal with, and after essentially pretty much having their way with Nashville in the first round and being able to take care of business against the Blues, I think they should have a pretty good chance against the Oilers as well. So I think if my predictions are right, I think the Avs are probably going to go to the finals, and it's going to be against Tampa. I think Tampa's probably going to beat whoever ends up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. It's probably going to be Tampa against Edmonton or Colorado. Like, I can't really make a real pick.
But that said, though,
those two.
But that said, though, I don't think it's going to be a three-peat. I have a strange feeling that Colorado is probably going to break it up. I really don't want to see a three-peat, quite frankly.
Yeah, it'll be tough. But we'll see. Yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, that's going to be it for our episode today for Memorial Day Monday. So definitely hope everyone has enjoyed the day today with their friends and family. And yeah, we'll be back again next weekend to discuss another week in Boston sports. Until then, everyone, have a great rest of your day. And yeah, just have a great week ahead.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Peace.